Good morning, everyone. It's Friday, February 6th. It's 9 a.m., and this is a meeting of the Senate Natural Resources and Energy Committee. We have a short schedule this morning, but an important topic. In the governor's budget speech, he alluded to a $10 million appropriation to bring clean renewable energy to lower income Vermonters, and we wanted to learn more about it. Happily enough, we have Mr. Allen here to join us this morning and tell us more about the program that the administration's envisioning. So good morning, Mr. Allen. Good to see you again.
Good morning, Senators. Yes, for the record, my name is Riley Allen. I'm Deputy Commissioner of the Vermont Department of Public Service. What I'm here to testify about is a concept and a program that we would like to move forward with that we call the Affordable Community Solar Clean Energy Initiative. And the initiative is, it's at a concept phase. We have certain pillars that, represent the, kind of foundational elements of what we have in mind. I think we have in place, in Vermont Electric Co-op's territory, something that we think about as a reference point for what we have in mind and what we would use the $10 million to kind of leverage, if you will. And I just kind of want to walk through those pillars. I want to walk through, how we think it might work. But I also wanted to allude to the process. We think that this is a very rich area in terms of the literature and concepts that have been developed around this topic. And we want to engage in a process of kind of fully not only vetting but incorporating features of the program that could help to make it an even better and richer program. So with that, let me just kind of go into the pillars. I have shared with Jude a concept paper. I think it's fairly broadly framed. So I'm hoping to put more meat on the bone. But at the end of the day, I'm hoping that you all have enough of a there that you understand what we're trying to do and what it looks like, at least at this stage, and that there's process elements that need to follow to kind of fill it out even further. So the pillars.
Mr. Allen, yes. I have made you co-host if you'd like to share that document with committee members. It's on our website.
I don't actually feel the need to. I mean, it's just words that I'll be kind of repeating here, so I think I can do without that. The pillars are solar. It's focused on solar. We could potentially pivot off of that somewhat, but in our own mind, we think that distributed solar is a good focus. It's very much focused on LMI, low and moderate income households. We want a program that essentially helps to bring them into the participation in the clean energy area, the opportunities that are afforded by clean energy. And so we want to provide or develop a program that marries solar energy with low and moderate income households. We intend to implement something at scale. So we're not thinking of rooftop solar, at least not at this stage. We're not thinking in terms of small project. We're really trying to realize the economies of scale that can be realized with projects that are largely 1 megawatt and above in the solar space. We think that's that sweet spot where you begin to realize the full efficiencies of putting your project together and doing it at low cost. We intend to use competitive solicitation. So we want to use market forces to drive down the costs. So the concept is to probably leverage our utilities or existing state mechanisms to develop a RFP type process to foster. It's it's a $10 million. We think that's probably 5 to 6 megawatts worth of energy. So it may be 5 to 6 projects that are potentially in play. They could be in different parts of the state. And this is not about net metering. This is a different concept than the net metering concept. We're reaching a state at a stage of the process where solar costs have come down so much that they can, with the essentially added value that they provide through the renewable energy credits, they can compete pretty well with other resources that are out there. So those are the elements. Beyond that, I just say that the way we're thinking about it's nice to have something in the state that we like and recognize, and seems to provide a point from which we could actually pivot. It's fairly tangible. We think Vermont Electric Co-op has done some pretty interesting work in this space. They have scale projects, community solar projects. The way that's structured is their ratepayers have the ability to essentially step forward and make an investment. They call it sponsorship, but make an upfront investment. In exchange for that investment, they get a credit on their bill. It shows up on their bill as a monthly credit. They can either put the money down up front on either a 10-year or a 20-year commitment, and they can borrow against that upfront amount. So they can essentially repay their loan, if you will, on that upfront commitment that will, essentially be a part of a pay-as-you-save type arrangement where they're both kind of paying off their investment and receiving a monthly credit for their share of essentially an array. They pick a number of panels and receive essentially a net credit on their bill as a result of their participation in the program. We think the $10 million can be used to essentially buy down that investment for income qualifying households. So they would, instead of perhaps if they were to commit to say 20 panels, instead of paying $4,500 or $5,000 up front, we could essentially buy down that upfront commitment, perhaps even eliminate it for the lowest income segments of the population that might participate. So with that, I think I'll pause. One other thing, I think that the key constituencies that we feel that we need to kind of work with and vet this through include essentially the low and moderate income communities. We probably work with CAP agencies and the community action agencies and the like. We think the utilities themselves will be excellent partners in helping to refine this concept. And we think the development community, the developers, Renewable Energy Vermont and the like. And we've already started to engage those last two segments. So I'll pause there and hold for questions.
Thank you. Any committee questions yet for Mr. Allen? I do have one. Senator McDonald.
Yeah. So what's the plan?
What's the plan? The plan is to engage in an outreach process. To start by, we have a concept. We think it's kind of clear enough what that concept is. We want engagement. We want feedback. We want others to essentially kick the tires on what we're looking at and tell us where we should be pivoting, what we should be including, what shouldn't be included.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry I asked. I'll just remain silent.
It's interesting to hear about another way to try to move community. We have for 3 years running, this year will be the fourth, a quote unquote community scale renewable energy proposal and a bill, and we haven't been able to it hasn't somehow fit for any utilities or developers yet, but I think it has the same bones underneath it, in terms of trying to achieve scale and bring down costs. So it's great to hear, another way of trying to get at it. I guess one thing I'm wondering is, I was surprised to hear from Ms. Cohen on the VEC program, which sounds somewhat similar. I think their take rate is now somewhere around 25%, which was a little surprising to me. I thought it would be it would be so attractive, it might be a sellout.
Right.
And 100% subscribed. Have you worked with them to figure out what it is that brings it, might bring it from 25% to 90 or 100%? Is that what your subsidy discussions are trying to get at?
That's exactly what it's trying to get at. It's I mean, as part of the VEC program, the Vermont Electric Co-op program, there is a capital commitment that is upfront. It's one that you can kind of get out of, and you can flip, and it can be readily passed to others. So at least conceptually, it shouldn't present much of a barrier. But yeah, the incentive, the thing that we think will bring us to something close to 100% is the fact that we have that $10 million to essentially buy down that upfront commitment. So the trying to make it an offer you can't refuse is kind of the concept. If we can buy this down for the lowest income segments of the population, it's a win. There shouldn't be any reason that and you can structure it in different ways that actually kind of opt in customers, or if they are kind of already qualified for lower income programs. So you can kind of grease the path a little bit toward participation and supporting segments of the population, allowing them to opt out if they don't want to participate, or things like that. Some of the concepts that we're throwing around.
Right. And the actual cost, for someone who developed such an array, 1 meg or above, what kind of pricing do you think will come out of that? Are we talking like 8 or 9 cents per kilowatt?
Yeah, we're thinking, I mean, a good kind of proxy. I mean, as this community is certainly aware, solar costs have been coming down, and we've seen that that trend in the standard offer programs. They run through kind of an annual auction for solar, and these are projects that are up to 2.2 megawatts in scale. So they are at scale, and the trend line has been a declining price. We think you can get to scale now below 9 cents a kilowatt hour. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Sure. The other piece that on our exploration of community scale renewable, we were talking about a value stack, and in terms of what that pricing would be that came out. And one of the elements that might get added in would be on-site storage to try to, under the control of the DU. Have you explored tagging storage onto it, or does that, do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, we think it's probably almost essential in certain parts of the state that you kind of couple the solar with storage. just because the saturation of solar is getting pretty high in certain areas. So depending on where you locate the solar, you either need to couple it with some flexible load assets that are out there today. That could be, a flexible manufacturing operations or end-use loads like electric vehicles, or you really have to be thinking in terms of storage. Southern parts of the state, you might be able to kind of get away with a pure a solar commitment, but yeah, we're reaching high levels and saturation of solar distributed resources in the state. I think we have 400 megawatts now relative to a peak load of just north of 900 megawatts and an average load of around 600 megawatts.
Okay. Well, we were just looking at energy burden work yesterday, or reporting from VEIC, and it would seem as though one of the areas that you might find customers would be the Northeast Kingdom, but when you have Shiite constraints. So that's part of why I was asking about associating storage with it. And I don't know what that does to the cost model for folks. It seems like my impression is we're early enough in the days of storage that is still somewhat an expensive technology to deploy. But can you fill us in a little on that cost?
It's coming down at a pace that is even steeper than solar. I mean, the numbers are getting really promising, and the work, yeah, I think the last time I looked online, I think it was something in the neighborhood of $130 per megawatt hour, and Elon Musk is now talking about battery technology being as low as $50 a megawatt hour out in 2025 or so. So that looks promising. I think that the prices have been declining between 10 and 20% a year.
Okay, great. Any committee questions for Mr. Allen? Senator Westman, you serve on the board of VEC. Do you have any? And I know my impression from past visits with VEC and the committee is that they're interested in serving the low and moderate income community, that they have many low income customers.
Yep.
So.
Well, and I am on the VAC board and have been for 6 years. So just to put that out there. But Vermont Electric has a community solar project in Alburg that is about sold out. We have projects in Grand Isle. We have projects in Heinsberg and Jericho that are under development. So it's no wonder you're not all sold out when you're developing as you're going along.
Sure.
And basically the concept is you can call it whatever you want, but in my small brain, I think of it as you buy a solar panel in a community solar project, and you don't have to have that solar project on your rooftop or on your house. And particularly where that is important is, and I'd say we'll have better census numbers coming out, but nearly 30% of the state rents. If you're a renter, it's virtually impossible for you to buy a solar panel and put it on your rental. But you can, if you're a Vermont Electric customer, buy a solar panel in a community solar project, and basically they meter your electricity, and you can use that as a credit against your bill. So it allows the rental community, which 30% of the state is rental, to have an option. which I think is really a good idea.
Great. Thanks for pointing out the rental community piece.
Well, you know, that rental peak 30%, as we are talking about all of the pieces out there, that's a pretty significant number of people, 30% of our population. That's approaching 1 out of every 3 people. And the solar movement has, because it, you know, is kind of out of their reach. It also allows people that don't happen to want a solar project on their house to, in a community setting, have the and we are having discussions about it, how you put storage at those collected sites now. And we've cited all of those sites at Vermont Electric. In the particularly the reason it's in Grand Isle County is there are a lot of summer homes there, and the usage peaks in the summer when solar is at its peak, and it lowers the transmission costs in the line losses.
Great.
So it is working for Vermont Electric.
Great. Senator McCormick?
Thanks. Yeah. I think we've got a very strong case that long-term energy conservation and green energy it ultimately saves money, but short-term, the penny wise and pound foolish economics actually work short-term. What we are hearing often is that we ought to put state resources more into fuel assistance, even if it means assistance with fuel to heat the great outdoors. That if you want to keep people warm this month, the best way to do it is to pay their oil bill. And so how do you recommend people like me in my position answer that?
Unfortunately, you have to do both. I mean, you know, the immediate need is the immediate need. That's an urgency that has to be addressed and attended to. The longer term also needs to be addressed. It's a question of kind of recognizing that there are just huge opportunities going forward, and we need to do the work to address this through weatherization initiatives, particularly focused on lower income communities. And this is one more area where, you know, at least by my math, there are potentially 1,500 homes that could be helped if all the money went in that direction. And if only 50% of it went in that direction, then that's 3,000 homes. So I think there's an urgency on both sides.
Great.
Thanks.
Well, and you're also addressing as is the other bill. You know, the whole thing of people have been trying to get at the problem of community solar through net metering, and it's not an ideal fit, and it doesn't take advantage of the economies of scale very well. So I'm glad to see us providing another channel to connect more people.
Yeah, I mean, net metering, I think it was, you know, it's a category that lent itself particularly well to as a policy path back when, you know, the value streams were there to kind of make it pay for itself. It's, you know, increasingly leaning on other ratepayers for that. And as a ratepayer advocate, I'd rather see pathways that are, you know, don't have implications for non-participating ratepayers, pathways that are, you know, provide, you know, direct benefits to those that are engaged in the program.
Okay. All right. And do you have a timeline in mind for rollout and development?
Well, I mean, this is in the fiscal year 22 budget. We think there's some spade work that needs to occur. As I indicated at the beginning, there is a rich body of literature out there that we need to kind of look at. We have, I think, a fairly clear approach as out of the gate that, you know, kind of makes sense and kind of works, but we want to, you know, engage on issues like the storage issue, on, you know, how best to work with and incorporate the lower and moderate income communities in the program. There are opportunities to leverage and pivot from the energy assistance programs of Green Mountain Power and LIHEAP and other things. I think there's you know, some good work that needs to precede, you know, a fully vetted program. Then in my mind, probably a late summer or so, we would probably either rely on the utilities to engage in the RFP process, or somehow facilitate a centralized platform for a competitive bidding process. And we would have to develop the central, we view this as a centralized platform. So this would be one statewide program that would pivot from, you know, the utility specific programs and leverage them, hopefully to good effect. But we would like to see a central software platform that people could just go in statewide. We could market this program statewide, and people could kind of sign on and identify the arrays that they want to participate in, or the like. At least that's what we're visualizing at this point.
Okay. Currently, so under the net metering paradigm, you need to be in the service territory of the array. Are you thinking that that constraint will go away on this program or not?
Yeah, I don't think that has to be the case. I think you can have the arrays. You can go either way. I think we have some latitude. I'd like to hear from our partners on what makes sense there. At least as I think about it now, I'd like to see these arrays located sensibly. So Senator Westman mentioned the, I think it was Albert, but it was one of the communities that, you know, the siting of the arrays was well aligned with the load characteristics and profiles of the community. I think that's an important consideration going forward. And that kind of consideration might help to reduce the capital burden of, you know, storage and other things that might otherwise have to accompany the solar bill.
Sure. We developed a preferred location concept in order to help drive development to areas that town energy plans had identified as, you know, suitable for, or just tolerable for, whatever you wanted to call it, for development at the local level. Are you thinking about incorporating that sort of preferred siting paradigm in some way, or?
Well, I was thinking of it as kind of a preferred siting at the a statewide level, but I think there is a kind of statewide and local level preferred siting issues. And I think these are issues that really, you know, as I think about it, it really relates to, you know, my concerns about pressures on the distribution and bulk transmission system. So it's not necessarily kind of the same lens through which you might be thinking about it, but it is, you know, I think it preferred siting is essentially the concept that I have in mind. Yeah.
Sure. Right.
Mr. Chair,
preference. Yes.
Definitions. When we're talking about siting, sometimes we're talking about community zoning and visual et ceteras. And sometimes when we talk about siting, we're talking about locating for the purposes of the electricity's most effective distribution. And often, I don't know which of those the witness is referring to.
Yeah, I'm referring to the latter.
Okay, and that in the vernacular, it's what sort of siting?
It's citing with respect to the constraints on the bulk transmission and distribution system.
Okay. Thank you. We as a committee need to help our witnesses with come up with a shorter one for that. But
Yeah, I'll work on that one.
Thank you. Yeah.
So when sometimes we say generation close to load, is that we're in the same neighborhood there? I mean, you're being more precise and technical because you're all dealing with how you're going to interconnect and what is it going to do to the grid that you're connecting to, right?
Well, ideally, you want these. It would be nice to have, and maybe highly desirable to have the generation, at load for a multitude of reasons. Certainly, if there is a marriage there between the production and the load at the location, maybe kind of smoothed with some amount of storage, there isn't any real strain on the opportunity for strain on the distribution system or the bulk transmission system. So that's certainly something that would be highly desirable. I would imagine that we might be able to kind of leverage some interest in creating microgrids and resilient kind of community centers that may be well suited, may actually serve several policy ends at the same time. If we could locate these arrays in areas that with some battery technology and the like could help support emergency operations or emergency facilities at certain times, that would be that would be a positive. And I would like to structure this in a way that kind of recognizes those kinds of opportunities. But absent that, I would say that we have to be just mindful of where it is that the system is strained and where it is that we could at statewide level potentially cite these, and we can potentially just wheel the energy, if you will, to the systems that ultimately have customer base that would like to participate in the program.
Sure. One of the other conversations that's coming up more and more, both in this committee and finance, is broadband more for regular communications on the finance committee, but also for utilities. So is that part of sort of your screening criteria yet for suitable locations, that you have fiber to the site, or it's such a narrow consideration you could just you would do purpose-built fiber to the site if you needed it?
Yeah, it's premature to say that that's kind of a part of our filtering criteria, but it has been brought to my attention that there are actually some communities in southern Vermont that have particular reliability challenges related to essentially the telecommunications end of things, and part of that, frankly, is the electric reliability in those areas. So that is in view. It's something that we've talked about. It's premature for me to call that a criteria.
Sure. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for introducing this. I'm just trying to make sure that if there are any other committee questions that people have a chance to ask while Mr. Riley, when Mr. Allen is still with us. I'm used to saying Riley Allen, but go to formal names during committee time. So any more questions for Mr. Allen?
No, but thanks. It's good to see you, Riley.
Okay, it's good to see you all. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
You bet.
thanks for coming over this morning.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. All right, so as I mentioned when we were getting started, we had 3 witnesses for different reasons, all cancel, we're rescheduling them for next week. So people are gonna have extra time this morning. I'm gonna, in order to help myself, and I hope all of us, shift from collecting information to working on a bill, rather than worry about having all the formal language from Luke, to send an outline of the content of the bill so that we can just work in English till we have drafting to go with it. And I will write that up and send it to people in the next day. And what I would ask is that people take a look and maybe look at your notes and start, editing up, marking up that outline for yourselves. Next Tuesday is already, our agenda is full, but on Wednesday, I thought we could visit the outline and put together basically the outline of what the committee bill will be, that we can then move forward with in the next 3 to 4 weeks, and certainly make sure we're making crossover. The other regular question I have to people is, I feel like we've been in a graduate seminar on energy issues in the last 3+ weeks. I'm wondering if people feel like they still have questions they know that they would like to see us address, and if they're or people you would like to hear from. So for instance, we talked about having Sue Minter come to the committee, but she was unavailable this week due to other commitments. So she's on our list. We will be hearing next week from Rich Cowart, who's the lead on the clean heat standard. So we were talking about fuels, and so we'll visit that. We talked about ways to raise money to support this work. One of the programs mentioned was Pay As You Save, and we'll be getting Paul Sillo and perhaps his partner in to talk to us about that next week as well. So I don't know if people say, if you have anything right now, because I'm going to be working on agenda with Jude this morning. Is there anyone you would like to hear from that I haven't yet mentioned? Okay, I'm not hearing any requests, so I'll press on with those. And if you have anything, of course, I always want to make sure that the agenda reflects the committee's interests. So don't be shy, let me know. And with that, we've completed our work for the morning. And if there's nothing further from anyone, we are adjourned. Have a lovely weekend. I heard it was going to be a sunny day, but it's snowing here in Bristol. So
Going here too.
It was the reddest sunrise I have seen in years this morning. Absolutely bright red.
It was
Sun in the
beautiful.
morning, sailors take warning. Boy.
yeah,
Just
You have the elevation to see the sunrise. I live in the valley. I haven't seen a sunrise in 40 years. At least in Vermont, I haven't. It's always foggy. It's always foggy.
just bright from right across the, silhouetting the mountains to the east. Yep.
yeah, it was so bright that all the way to the west, it was pink even here.
Right.
Yeah. Right. All right. Well, great. So thank you everyone for a good week. I'll get that outlined to people. We'll give ourselves a tool to lay out the bones of the bill, and then we'll work with Luke to do the drafting to put the meat on the bones. So